How long will you play Captain Marvel for?
I don't know. Does anyone want me to do it again?
Don't be so modest.
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't have the answer to that.
Is there any...
The production of Deadpool 3 has morphed into a fierce battleground, with Ryan Reynolds at the forefront, wielding his influence to challenge Disney's grand plans for the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. At the center of this conflict is Brie Larson's cameo as Captain Marvel, which Disney envisioned as a key piece in their strategy to integrate Deadpool into the broader MCU framework. This cameo wasn't just about adding another recognizable face to the mix, it was intended to be a marketing tool, subtly or not so subtly, laying the groundwork for future MCU projects like Fantastic Four and more. However, Reynolds, who has become the heart and soul of Deadpool, had different ideas. He wasn't interested in being part of a corporate-driven machine that sought to exploit Deadpool's popularity.
Competition between the different sects, the different groups.
There's no competition for me because I'm the strongest.
Which is your favorite MCU dynamic duo? Real Carol and Fury.
For Disney's grander narrative goals. The decision to cut Larson from the movie wasn't merely a casting change, it was a statement, a bold declaration of independence against Disney's tight grip on the MCU. Reports have suggested that Larson's lines in the script were filled with what Reynolds saw as blatant marketing copy, lines that seemed more concerned with promoting future MCU films than fitting organically into Deadpool's irreverent, chaotic world. Reynolds, known for his love of humor and unpredictability, understood that adding Captain Marvel to the mix would dilute the very essence of the character that fans adored. Deadpool thrives on its ability to break the fourth wall, push boundaries, and exist outside the typical superhero tropes. To force him into the MCU's polished and calculated structure would have been a disservice to the character and its fanbase. This was more than just a clash over casting. This was a fundamental disagreement over what Deadpool represented and how it should evolve in the MCU era. Reynolds, who has been deeply involved in shaping Deadpool's unique identity, fought tooth and nail to preserve that essence. Insiders speculate that Reynolds saw Larson's cameo as part of a larger MCU marketing scheme, a move that would have pushed Deadpool into the role of a tool for Disney's ongoing cinematic empire. The presence of Captain Marvel was supposed to subtly promote future MCU films, but Reynolds refused to let that happen on Deadpool's watch. To him, it wasn't just about keeping Larson out of the film. It was about fighting against Disney's attempt to reduce Deadpool to another cog in their machine. By cutting Larson's cameo, Reynolds was pushing back against what he viewed as Disney's assembly line approach to. In many ways, this move represents a rebellion against Disney's iron grip on the MCU. For years, Marvel fans have voiced concerns about the oversaturation of the market and the over-reliance on interconnected storylines. The last thing Deadpool needed was to become another pawn in Disney's never-ending quest to expand its cinematic empire. In a world where every film seems to be connected to the next, filmmaking, which often prioritizes synergy and interconnectedness over originality and character integrity. For Reynolds, Deadpool was never meant to be a vehicle for Disney's sprawling universe. The character thrives on chaos, irreverence, and unpredictability, qualities that would have been watered down by a predictable, MCU-driven cameo. The idea that Deadpool could serve as a commercial for future Marvel movies was not only insulting to the character, but also to the fans who had fallen in love with its unique style. Deadpool was one of the last remaining outliers, a film series that could stand on its own without worrying about fitting into a larger, overarching narrative. By cutting Larson's cameo, Reynolds made it clear that he wasn't willing to let Deadpool lose its identity just for the sake of Disney's greater MCU plans. But this wasn't just about Deadpool's legacy. It was about the very future of Marvel itself. Disney has long used its films to push the interconnected web of the MCU, with each movie serving not just as an individual story, but as part of a broader strategy. Captain Marvel's cameo in Deadpool 3 was just one piece of that puzzle, a way to introduce elements of Phase 5 and set the stage for future Marvel films. For Reynolds, however, This wasn't about the future. It was about the here and now. He wasn't willing to let Deadpool become a marketing tool to promote other franchises. In a way, Reynolds was doing the fans a favor, keeping the movie from turning into just another cog in Disney's machine. The backlash against Disney's increasingly formulaic approach to superhero films has been growing for years. Fans have expressed fatigue with the repetitive nature of the MCU, where every new release feels like a piece in an ever-expanding puzzle rather than a standalone story. In that context, Reynolds' decision to remove Larson was not just a matter of creative differences. It was a stand against the very system that Disney has been building. Deadpool had carved out a space for itself in the superhero genre by being different. It wasn't beholden to any grand narrative. The battle over Deadpool 3 is far from just a creative dispute. It's a clash of visions. Reynolds and the filmmakers saw the movie as a self-contained, boundary-pushing finale to Deadpool's journey. It was meant to be a chaotic celebration of the character's most defining qualities: unpredictability, irreverence, and a complete disregard for conventional superhero tropes. Narrative or shared universe, and it didn't need to be. The character's appeal came from its ability to break free from the usual constraints of the genre and do whatever it wanted. For Reynolds, that freedom was non-negotiable. So, as Deadpool 3 moves forward without Larson, one thing is clear: Ryan Reynolds is determined to keep the character's soul intact, even if it means taking on Disney and its carefully crafted MCU vision. By refusing to let Deadpool become another piece in Marvel's ever-expanding puzzle, Reynolds is making a statement about what Deadpool stands for and what it will never become. In the end, this isn't just a fight over a cameo. It's a battle for the very identity of Deadpool in the MCU era, and Reynolds is making sure that his character doesn't lose its edge in the process. Ryan Reynolds' decision to cut Brie Larson's Captain Marvel cameo from Deadpool 3 is more than just a behind-the-scenes casting change. It represents a defiant stand against Disney's increasingly corporate-driven control over the Marvel Cinematic Universe, MCU, and the moment has sent shockwaves through the production, signaling a battle between creative freedom and Disney's relentless pursuit of synergy. The heart of the conflict lies in Larson's appearance, which was initially planned as a strategic move to promote future MCU projects and to reinforce Captain Marvel's role in Disney's grand narrative. But Reynolds, who has built Deadpool into a symbol of chaos and rebellion, saw the cameo as a direct threat to the integrity of his character and the film's tone. This was not a simple tweak in the casting department. It was a calculated move to preserve the wild, unpredictable spirit of Deadpool while challenging Disney's attempts to use the film as another cog in their increasingly mechanized Marvel machine. The situation is more than just about one cameo. It's about the very future of Deadpool within the MCU framework. From the start, Disney's plans for Deadpool 3 have been focused on the larger MCU, trying to force the film into the blueprint that has defined their approach for over a decade. Disney saw Deadpool 3 as a potential launchpad to build connections between the established X-Men world and the MCU, complete with hints at Fantastic Four and other major Marvel properties. For Disney, Larson's appearance as Captain Marvel was designed to serve this very purpose, a clear message to audiences that Deadpool 3 wasn't just an isolated story, but rather another chapter in the vast interconnected MCU saga. But Reynolds, deeply protective of Deadpool's unique brand, was having none of it. He viewed the inclusion of Larson's character not as a narrative enhancement, but as a cheap marketing gimmick that would derail the film's authenticity. The film's core appeal lies in its irreverence, its commitment to not conforming to superhero movie cliches. Adding Captain Marvel, a character with strong ties to the polished, interconnected MCU, would have stripped Deadpool of that edge, turning it into just another promotional tool for upcoming Marvel films. The irony here is that Deadpool was a project that almost never happened. It all started with a leaked test footage in 2014, which ignited a firestorm of excitement among fans. This overwhelming response forced Fox to push the movie into production despite its somewhat unconventional approach. Reynolds, who had been championing the film for years, fought tooth and nail for the character's authenticity. Deadpool was not supposed to be a by-the-numbers superhero movie. It was supposed to be a disruptive force, a chaotic entity that played by its own rules. But now, with Disney at the helm, that ethos was under threat. Disney wanted to use Deadpool as a way to weave its own narrative threads, to make the film serve as a stepping stone for future MCU projects. But Reynolds, who has always understood the importance of the character's voice, was not going to let that happen. In his eyes, the inclusion of Larson's Captain Marvel wasn't about enhancing the story. It was about enforcing Disney's agenda. Disney, however, saw the movie as part of a much larger puzzle, something to slot into the bigger MCU framework. The studio wanted Deadpool 3 to serve as a bridge between the X-Men universe and the MCU, peppered with references to future films like Fantastic Four and other interconnected stories. For Reynolds, however, this was the exact opposite of what Deadpool should be. He saw it as a betrayal of everything the character represented: freedom, rebellion, and irreverence. This tension is about more than just one film. It represents the larger battle within the Marvel Universe, the struggle between corporate control and creative expression. Disney, which has dominated the superhero genre for years, has developed a well-oiled system for churning out interconnected stories that all serve a larger, unified vision. But Deadpool was never meant to be part of that formula. The character's success has always been built on its ability to defy expectations, to break the mold. Reynolds, as both the star and the creative force behind the films, has made it clear that he will not let Deadpool become another cog in Disney's machine. By cutting Larson's cameo, Reynolds is making a statement. Deadpool will remain untamed, unfiltered, and above all, independent. But the stakes are high. If Deadpool 3 succeeds in its pure, unadulterated form, it will be a major victory for creative freedom in Hollywood, showing that there is still room for films that don't fit neatly into the corporate box that Disney has created. It will send a message that audiences still crave films that aren't designed solely to promote future projects or fill in gaps in a larger franchise. And that could be the first crack in Disney's tightly controlled grip over the MCU. For all of Disney's financial dominance and success, Deadpool 3 could mark a turning point in the way Marvel films are made, with more room for individual creativity and less emphasis on the studio's overarching agenda. However, if the movie falters at the box office, the consequences could be far-reaching. Disney's efforts to integrate Deadpool into the MCU narrative could become a cautionary tale, one that proves that even the most rebellious characters cannot escape the gravitational pull of the Marvel Universe. If Deadpool 3 fails to resonate with audiences, it could embolden Disney to continue pushing its formulaic approach on future films, further cementing the studio's dominance over the superhero genre. For now, Deadpool 3 represents the ultimate test. It's not just about whether the movie will be successful or not. It's about whether creativity can still thrive in a world where Disney's corporate interests have come to define the superhero genre. Ryan Reynolds has put everything on the line to protect the integrity of Deadpool, but in doing so, he's also drawn a line in the sand for the future of Marvel. This battle over Deadpool 3 could have ripple effects that last long after the film's release, shaping the direction of the superhero genre for years to come. As Deadpool 3 heads toward its release, the question remains, will it succeed as a true Deadpool film, or will Disney's influence turn it into just another piece in their MCU puzzle? If Reynolds wins this battle, it will be a victory not just for Deadpool, but for every filmmaker who believes that creativity should come before corporate interests. And if Disney prevails, it will mark the beginning of a new era in which even the most rebellious of characters are ultimately tamed by the studio's unyielding desire for control. For now, all eyes are on Deadpool 3, where creativity and corporate strategy are locked in a high-stakes showdown. Ryan Reynolds' decision to cut Brie Larson's cameo from Deadpool 3 turned out to be a gamble that paid off in monumental fashion. The film opened with a record-breaking $25 million domestic box office haul, making it the largest opening for an R-rated film in history and the biggest of 2024. This stunning success not only surpassed expectations but also left Disney's recent MCU releases in the dust, particularly when compared to the underwhelming debut of the Marvels the year before. Reynolds' gamble was crystal clear. He would rather preserve Deadpool's chaotic, unrestrained spirit than allow the character to be subsumed into the larger, more predictable Marvel machine. By removing Larson's cameo and resisting Disney's push to mold Deadpool 3 into just another MCU cog, Reynolds ensured that fans would get the unfiltered, irreverent Deadpool experience they had come to love. The result was a film that felt like a breath of fresh air, self-contained, free of excessive tie-ins, and uncompromising in its tone. This decision seemed to resonate with audiences who have grown increasingly fatigued by the repetitive and formulaic nature of the MCU. Deadpool 3 offered something different, a story that both poked fun at and revitalized the MCU without being bound by its convoluted continuity. Critics have even suggested that this movie could be exactly what the MCU needed, a shot in the arm that could refresh the franchise while sidestepping Disney's standard cinematic blueprint. Reynolds' commitment to keeping the film pure and focused on Deadpool's unique brand of humor didn't end with the removal of Larson's cameo. Instead of the typical MCU heroes who populate these films as guest stars, Deadpool 3 was filled with surprise cameos, unexpected characters that kept fans on their toes and reminded them why Deadpool's world is unlike any other. These appearances, along with a strong central narrative, helped keep the film rooted in its signature chaos and wit. The result was a cinematic experience that felt spontaneous, authentic, and undeniably Deadpool. This bold departure from the MCU formula signals a shift in the Deadpool franchise, and possibly even in Marvel's broader storytelling approach. Disney, known for its iron grip on the MCU, might have to seriously reconsider how much creative freedom it is willing to give away, especially in light of Deadpool 3's success. Far from flopping, the film has thrived, proving that Reynolds' uncompromising approach not only preserved Deadpool's identity, but might have set the stage for a larger shift in the Marvel Universe itself. If Deadpool 3 becomes the smash hit that fans hope it will, this could mark a turning point for the MCU, with a greater emphasis on unique, standalone stories rather than a relentless push for interconnected narratives. In a recent interview, Reynolds seemed to acknowledge the risk involved in creating a film that defied Disney's typical strategies. He expressed pride in the fact that the film was allowed to be as raw and boundary-pushing as it was. The creative freedom that Deadpool 3 afforded was made possible by Disney's decision not to interfere with its R rating, which had previously been a sticking point with other Marvel properties. Reynolds compared the Deadpool films to Logan, another R-rated superhero movie that allowed for a more authentic portrayal of Wolverine. He noted that this freedom allowed for a more complete, unfiltered version of the character and a more enjoyable experience for the audience. Reynolds was clear that while he didn't exploit the R rating for gratuitous reasons, the opportunity to create a film that wasn't confined by the usual superhero tropes opened up endless possibilities for creativity. The decision to cut Larson's cameo was just one of the many ways Deadpool 3 rejected the norms of the MCU. Disney's push to have the film fit into its multiverse plans and tease future MCU storylines was a direction Reynolds was unwilling to follow. He knew that if Deadpool were to be part of the MCU in any way, it would need to be on his terms. He wasn't interested in turning Deadpool 3 into another cog in the ever-expanding Marvel machine. Rather, he saw it as a chance to send the character off in a way that stayed true to his roots. The film needed to be as irreverent, as chaotic, and as unapologetically itself as Deadpool had always been. This pushback against Disney's control speaks volumes about Reynolds' vision for the character and the future of superhero storytelling. He is not merely defending Deadpool's legacy, He is challenging the very structure of how superhero movies are made today. By making this stand, Reynolds is showing that it is possible to create successful superhero films without following the tried-and-true formulas established by Disney and the MCU. In doing so, he's implicitly critiquing Disney's tendency to play it safe, relying on predictability and marketing gimmicks rather than truly inventive storytelling. If Deadpool 3 succeeds as a standalone film, it will send a powerful message to Disney and the rest of the film industry. Audiences are craving more original stories, and they are willing to support films that break the mold. Reynolds' approach to the movie is a challenge to Marvel to evolve, to embrace more daring and unconventional storytelling that doesn't fit neatly into the preordained narratives of the MCU. With Deadpool 3, Reynolds has shown that it is possible to make a movie that doesn't conform to the corporate-driven demands of Disney while still achieving massive success. Reynolds' resistance to Disney's attempts to bring Deadpool 3 in line with the MCU also speaks to a larger issue within the superhero genre as a whole. Many fans are growing tired of the endless crossovers, tie-ins, and interconnected stories that dominate the genre today. There's a growing desire for films that stand on their own, that don't rely on the baggage of previous films or future plans to succeed. Reynolds, in many ways, has become the face of this rebellion, a vocal proponent for films that prioritize creativity and character over marketing and continuity. If Deadpool 3 continues to outperform expectations and remains a fan favorite, it could very well signal the beginning of a new era in superhero filmmaking, one where characters are allowed to breathe and stories can exist independently, free from the need to constantly set up the next blockbuster event. By rejecting the MCU's control, Reynolds has proven that there is room for creative freedom in a world that is often dominated by corporate interests. The question now is whether Disney will learn from this lesson and allow more room for this kind of storytelling in the future. If Deadpool 3 is any indication, audiences are ready for change. These movies resonate because, at some point in their narratives, the external struggle becomes so intense that it prompts an internal crisis. This is where Captain Marvel, for many, fell short. Despite being hailed as a game-changing female superhero in a male-dominated world, Carol Danvers didn't undergo the same kind of transformation. The reality was that people fought for Captain Marvel. The star was fierce, and this was not his only tragic past, but there was no real sense of doubt or moral conflict. She was a woman in a world of men trying to prove herself, but by the middle and end of her film, she was still the same character, only now with superpowers. Even her amnesia couldn't shake her confidence. She knew who she was, and that she was always in the right. This brings us to the decision that sparked so much controversy, the removal of Brie Larson's cameo from Deadpool 3. Disney's decision to push Captain Marvel into Deadpool 3 seemed like a strategic move to leverage a well-known MCU character in a film that was already set to be a massive hit. But this move backfired in ways Disney didn't anticipate. The Deadpool franchise has always been about doing things differently. It's chaotic, irreverent, and, most importantly, unfiltered. Fans of Deadpool love the character precisely because he doesn't fit neatly into the MCU's larger, more predictable narrative. He's a free spirit, a hero who operates outside the usual boundaries. And the last thing fans wanted was to see Deadpool 3 morph into another cog in Disney's MCU machine. By inserting Captain Marvel into Deadpool 3, Disney risked alienating the very fans who had supported the character for years. Deadpool wasn't supposed to be part of the MCU's tightly controlled marketing agenda. It was meant to stand alone, to break the rules and poke fun at the formulaic approach that has come to define the superhero genre. But by attempting to push Captain Marvel into the mix, Disney risked making the film feel like a glorified advertisement for future MCU projects. The backlash was almost inevitable. Deadpool fans, who have always appreciated the character's irreverence and freedom, were understandably upset. They didn't want to see their beloved anti-hero turned into just another character in the MCU's ever-expanding universe. Ryan Reynolds, understanding the potential for fan outrage, made a bold decision. he cut Larson's cameo. This wasn't just about avoiding a fan revolt. It was about maintaining the integrity of Deadpool as a character. Reynolds understood that Deadpool wasn't meant to be part of Disney's grand MCU plans. If anything, he was a challenge to them. By resisting the push to conform, Reynolds signaled that Deadpool would not become just another cog in the MCU machine. This was a risky move, especially considering Disney's tendency to take control of all creative decisions within its empire. But Reynolds was willing to take that gamble. By standing firm and refusing to let Deadpool 3 become another predictable Marvel movie, Reynolds was asserting his creative freedom. He was sending a message to Disney. If they wanted him to continue making Deadpool movies, they had to respect the character and the fan base that had made it a success. Reynolds knew that this was a delicate balance. Disney has rarely tolerated dissent when it comes to its MCU plans, but Reynolds wasn't backing down. He was betting on the strength of Deadpool's loyal fan base and the character's inherent appeal. If Reynolds could prove that Deadpool 3 could succeed without being tied to the larger MCU narrative, it would be a win for creative freedom. Removing forced MCU tie-ins from Deadpool 3 actually worked in its favor. It allowed the film to return to the irreverent, standalone style that fans had fallen in love with. In many ways, this decision brought the movie back to its roots, embracing the chaos, wit, and unpredictability that defined the Deadpool character. Much larger, a movement that champions creativity and independence over formulaic storytelling.